Hello everyone, I'm Burpee1322 and welcome to another GTA discussion video where we're going to be talking, of course, about the Doomsday Heist DLC. The trailer was just released today and it's going to be coming to GTA Online on December the 12th. Before we actually get into talking about it, having a discussion about it, me giving my thoughts about it, I'll just read the blurb about it first of all. A billionaire tech mogul, an idealistic intelligence agent, a socially awkward conspiracy theorist, and a neurotic supercomputer have been forced into an unlikely alliance to save San Andreas from total annihilation. As apocalyptic threats mount from enemies unknown, you and your criminal crew are enlisted to untangle the mysteries and eradicate threats spanning from the bustling streets of downtown Los Santos to the ocean floor and all the way to the inner depths of Mount Chiliad in an epic new online adventure. Now, I've been burned before. I can't tell you how many times I've been burned by a wonderful trailer that Rockstar put out. They're very, very good at making trailers. And every single time we have a new DLC, especially this year, I've always said exactly the same thing. And it's always ended up as cut and paste DLCs that are just copied from what the CEO stuff introduced and pasted onto different vehicles and different missions and things like that. Totally lacking any imagination in their content. I've talked about that before. But the thing that I always say in every single time that we get a new DLC is we need content. We need something to do. We always get these brand new vehicles which are all really cool. I'm not saying that everything that we've had from GTA DLCs has been bad. A lot of great new vehicles, but nothing to actually do with them. We don't get any great missions, and I've said multiple times before, missions like the style of heists, actually, the vehicles that we got when we got the Heist DLC were incorporated into the heists themselves. Since then, the DLCs that we've seen this year, especially where they've been wild vehicles, crazy new things and really interesting concepts for vehicles, just not put to any use, not given anything to do. And they're literally just a way to spend money and go about in free roam, causing issues for other people. So, this is something that I'm always saying about DLCs, and maybe we'll see a little bit of that with this. So, in the trailer, if you haven't seen it already, there will be various screenshots going on through the video to show what I'm talking about, but definitely watch it, but take everything with a bit of a grain of salt. And like I said, I've been burnt before, so let's just take a step back. I'm not boarding the hype train just yet. Let's take a more reserved look at it and look at it from a more realistic standpoint. So in the trailer, we see all sorts of weird and wonderful new things. Submarines, futuristic tanks, planes, helicopters, armored trucks. It looks like an MOC in the air, James Bond style underwater car, which is what the Arden should have been, flying Deluxos based on the Back to the Future car, and of course a jetpack. So how much of this is all going to be usable and how much is just cutscenes, we don't know at the moment, but you can be sure that anything that you can drive is going to be purchasable online. So if you can use it in whatever missions they bring up, you're going to be able to purchase it online. So if you thought that gun running was bad for free roam, this is going to make it even worse. Some of the vehicles that we see in here, it's just going to add to the already terrible experience in public free roam lobbies. And it's going to be expensive. Rockstar have just sold us a laser for $6.5 million. This new stuff is going to follow the same trend we've seen all year, and don't think that my opinions have changed about that from episode 97's big rant about it. It's going to be more of the same, you can guarantee that. However, there is a chance here for some very, very, very cautious optimism, because unlike the rest of the DLCs this year, it looks like there might actually be some content to back this up. And if it's anything like the sort of thing that I've wanted to see from the other big DLCs this year, hopefully we'll actually have some fun new things to do. The reason that I say that is because of some of the evidence that we see in the trailer. First of all, there's 4 people, just like Heists. Heists was all based around a team of 4 people getting a job done, and you see 4 character models in the trailer. The Doomsday Heist setup text is in the background of one of the shots, and obviously setup missions were very greatly incorporated to heists in general, especially in GTA Online. So you wouldn't likely to be seeing that text if it wasn't based around heists at all. Obviously, it has heist in the name. I don't think they would call it the Doomsday Heist if it wasn't going to be in some way related or similar to the heists that we've seen before. And, you know, we've got Lester in there as well, which is one thing that is pretty standard throughout the heists. And there's multiple cutscenes, multiple cutscenes from a variety of different places. It's not as if we're just seeing one trailer that's been created like we've seen from the DLCs this year, and then that's it. We just see bits of the cutscene where you're introduced to your bunker, for example, and then that's all you see. It looks like there's multiple cutscenes from multiple different things. So, people have been wanting more heists since the Heists DLC. It's probably the best update GTA has had so far. Probably by far, to be honest, for the majority of people, especially considering what the game started out with, and people were just waiting for that Heist DLC for so long, and it wasn't a disappointment. It was a great DLC, had a lot of fun with it, and ever since then, people have been wanting more. People have said, we want more heists. Heists were such a great thing. Loved cooperating with people, doing all these various missions. Give us more. Obviously, we haven't seen that because things have gone towards the cut and paste shark card route. But if we do get more of that, or even just a single heist that is much, much more involved, not just the standard 4 or 5 setup missions and then a finale, if it's multiple setup missions, 10, various different ways that you can do things. If it's a more involved single heist, then I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very happy. It's actual content. It's stuff that you can do in the game. I'm not sure how much money you're going to make from it though, just putting it out there. It's not as if you're stealing things for profit when you're saving the world, but we'll have to see about that. As always, I'm sure the prices of the items that we have and the potential money making will be as disappointing as ever. That ratio is terrible now, and it's going to be just the same, I'm sure. But that's no change from the usual. That's what we've come to expect now from this cash grab of a game. But if they get this right, it could be a single redeeming feature to a year of disappointing cash grab DLCs. It could redeem what has otherwise been just uninspired cut and paste stuff that I talked about in that previous video that just makes you feel like they're just putting stuff in to make you buy shark cards and take advantage of you. So if they get it right, if they put in a proper heist, a full-blown heist, maybe use a lot of the vehicles that we've seen from Smuggler's Run, from gun running, these special vehicles that have otherwise so far not been able to be used, if they put all of that in there and don't make it a huge barrier to entry. You shouldn't have to own these vehicles to be able to use them in heists, for example. You shouldn't have to own a bunker to be able to start one of these heists, although that is probably something that might be the case, because when heists were originally released, you had to have a high-end apartment to be able to start one. Now back then the reason for that was because they wanted to make sure you were of a high enough level and you were good enough to be able to access heists. But when you look back at it with more of a cynical standpoint, you could think that, well, they just wanted to make people spend extra money on higher end apartments to be able to access heists. We may see the same sort of thing here. You may have to have a bunker or be a CEO or something business related to be able to get into these heists, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is some barrier to entry there, like we've seen with every other DLC this year. But if they do get it right and it's not too bad of a barrier to entry, if you're able to do these heists with your friends without having to outlay a lot of money, which was always a problem with the businesses, if they get it right, it will be a very, very redeeming DLC and probably one of the better DLCs from a content standpoint, from being actually able to do something with what they give for a long, long time. However, if they get it wrong, it's simply going to be more of the same. It's going to be cut and paste stuff, high amounts of money that you have to outlay to be able to access these things, and then you have to put in more money to be able to buy the vehicles. Extremely high priced vehicles. We've seen it all year with the same sort of stuff, and I've talked about it in depth. And to be honest, I think what could be even worse about this one in particular is if they take that heist name, the word heist, and play on the thing that people have wanted the most since the game's release and wanted even more of after it was actually released to the game, and apply it to another CEO style cut and paste DLC where you're collecting boxes and having to sell everything in a public session. It will probably be the biggest transgression Rockstar have made to this game to date. That word heist, when you're talking about it with GTA Online, honestly to me is a sign of quality. Heists was an incredible DLC. It's something that the vast majority of people really enjoy, and it is the epitome of what made GTA Online great in the first place. If they take that and apply it to cut and paste rubbish like we've seen this year and play on that name to draw people in who otherwise wouldn't have been interested because they think it's a proper heist and it turns out not to be, then that's going to be seriously bad. So there is a lot on the line with this one in my opinion, and how much actual content we get from this from a heist perspective would probably determine how I treat it, from whether I like it or don't like it. Now I do have one other thing that I want to talk about relating to this, but let me know your thoughts in the comments about what you're expecting from this DLC. Do you think it's going to be more of the same, just another cash grab? Are you going into it with some cautious optimism? Or are you just fully aboard the hype train like the majority of other people probably are, and not looking at it with any cynicism whatsoever? Let me know. As always with these, I want to create a discussion and I want people to, give me your thoughts as well and talk it through and get some different opinions going. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about with this is it just me, or does this feel like a swan song for GTA Online, the last DLC? The last big DLC at least. Now I have said that before, and I think I said it this time last year, but that was before Red Dead Redemption 2 was put back, so it felt like the DLC before at the end of last year was the final DLC that we get. Then Red Dead Redemption 2 was put back, and we've had more honestly cut and paste stuff like I've said, but maybe that's the reason for that is because they didn't have as much time to develop it because it was all happening very quickly due to Red Dead Redemption 2's delay. Maybe it went that way. So, could this have been something that's been worked on for quite a while over the course of the last year to be the final DLC in anticipation of Red Dead Redemption 2 happening and them thinking, it's been 4 years now, let's move on? Having said that, it's possibly hard to think of that way because they're raking in so much money from the microtransactions in the game, but it also is starting to decrease in terms of player numbers and things like that. It's not quite as high as what it used to be, even if it, in terms of player activity, even if people are spending money on it, but that's more because things just cost more. I kind of liken the way that GTA Online has developed to the 3D era, and I've mentioned this a few times before, I think on the podcast mostly. When GTA Online was first released, it was kind of a shell. It was a proof of concept, I guess you could say. It worked when it wanted to, at least. It didn't on the first few days, but back on old gen, before we had Heist, before we even had the creator, it was just a thing. It was a bit of free roam, some races, some missions, very basic. And I liken that stage of the game to Grand Theft Auto 3. Grand Theft Auto 3 was revolutionary, and you could say GTA Online has been revolutionary even back then, because there was no other game that was doing that sort of thing. And GTA 3 was very much similar to that. It was revolutionary because there was no other game that was doing that sort of thing. And when you look back on it, it was a bit of a shell. It was a great game, and I have some great memories with it, but it wasn't as fleshed out as what you could think that it, what GTA eventually turned into. And then as GTA Online progressed, we got some more features. We got heists, we got the race creator, the job creator in general. we got various updates, different vehicles, fleshing out the classes a bit more, so we had more to choose from, more variety in what we could buy in terms of properties and things like that, garages. So it became a bit more of a well-rounded experience of GTA Online, but it remained GTA Online. It was what GTA felt, it still felt like GTA. And that reminds me very much of the difference between GTA 3 and then GTA Vice City. So Vice City introduced helicopters and boats and planes, all these things that we didn't have in GTA 3. The ability to buy properties came in with GTA Vice City. And when you look at Vice City in comparison to GTA 3, just based on the functional side, obviously I'm not talking about the setting, the fact that Vice City was in the 80s, things like that. Just talking about the actual functionality of the game and how the game performed. It is a big step up, Vice City, to what GTA 3 was, but it's still just it's all on the same engine, so it's building on what GTA 3 had, and then Vice City becomes an even better version of that, similar to how sort of the first year or two of GTA Online was building on the first part of it and making it a better version. And then recently, and especially the last year, things have gone a little bit crazy in GTA Online. We've seen crazy vehicles. We've seen ridiculous jobs and missions and things like that. The Cunning Stunts DLC, as much as it gave the racing community something to do with, the new creator and things like that, it was pretty out there for what GTA should, or what a lot of people think GTA is. Crazy stunt races in the sky. It's not a very GTA thing. And then from then on, we've had the same sort of thing. Crazy vehicles, the Batmobile put in here, flying bikes, rocket cars. It's gone a little bit crazy, and it looks like this is going to be the same sort of thing, maybe even more so. We're going to have jetpacks, we're going to have submarine cars and flying cars, and just all sorts of weird things, which is kind of more like what San Andreas was. So when you compare San Andreas to Vice City, obviously it was a lot bigger. It was a lot more depth to it in terms of the map and things like that. But if you actually look at the available vehicles and what you could do in the game, it went a bit more wild. There was the Hydra, for example, in San Andreas. We had crazy missions and all sorts of weird and wonderful things that you could do in the game that was above and beyond what you could do in Vice City. Now, it wasn't a huge change in terms of we haven't gone from not being able to have helicopters to then having helicopters, as we saw with GTA 3 to GTA Vice City, but it's kind of built on the base of what Vice City had, and then went to the extreme with it, and it even had a jetpack as well in San Andreas. So that kind of, the fact that there's a jetpack in this DLC, whether it's usable or not, whether it's just part of a cutscene or not, the fact that there's a jetpack in this DLC for GTA Online, it's kind of a nice tie-in to how the game has gone and its comparison to the 3D era with a jetpack being present in San Andreas. It kind of, GTA Online now, it doesn't feel as much like GTA as what GTA should feel. A lot of people have said it's kind of even more Saints Row now. It's a little bit out there. It's wild. It's just not that same raw GTA feeling that we had, obviously, when GTA Online was first released, but even then when you compare it to the single player aspect and even the mid years of GTA Online, where we just kept getting different vehicles, but it was still relatively realistic, we've definitely got rid of all of that for the last few years of DLCs, and certainly the last year, and certainly this DLC as well. And with this DLC, obviously it's the Doomsday Heist. It's very much playing on a theme. It's thematically the end of the road sort of thing. But the fact that there's so many crazy vehicles in this as well, it feels like we've finally reached a point where it's kind of a maximum. Where do you go beyond this? Where you've got flying cars, rocket bikes, all sorts of futuristic tanks, futuristic helicopters, weird and wonderful things in the game now. how do you go beyond that without just making a new game? And that was kind of how San Andreas felt. You know, we had everything that we could ever have imagined from the 3D era of games and more put into San Andreas. Where could you go beyond that? And obviously the next game was GTA 4, which completely, you know, brought it back from that craziness to be very much more realistic, I guess you could say, and very raw. And a lot of people didn't like that, but I like GTA 4. But it feels like we're at that same point for GTA Online now, and this could well be the last DLC that we see for GTA Online, at least in a big way. Having said that, that could be totally not the case, and we just get more weird and things that, you know, with the game making so much money from shark cards, they certainly have the incentive to keep it going as long as possible. But, you know, it's just something to think about, and it's just interesting how GTA Online has developed over the years from the bare bones part of it that we started with to a more fleshed out but still realistic version, and then now where we've got all sorts of crazy things going around in free roam. So just something to think about. Whether you want to comment on that down below as well, you know, feel free. But yeah, let's go in with this with a little bit of cautious optimism. Let's hope for more heists. Let's hope for another heist at least that is more involved and gives us some actual content. But like I said at the start, I've been burned before so many times, hoping and wishing for this sort of thing with gun running, with Smuggler's Run, with CEO stuff. I've been burned so much, and we're going to have to just wait and see. Don't go into it thinking it's going to be the greatest thing in the world. Don't get on the hype train just yet. Wait and see first. That's all I'll say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.